reward promptness. So hi, everybody. It's good to see so many familiar faces and some new faces as well. I am Stephanie Walsh. I'm the head of the Neighborhood Association, and thank you for joining us tonight. First up, we will start with Lieutenant Cunningham, who is driving back to the station for our update from Zone 5.
Okay. I was able to pull over here. So looking at the crime stats, actually not a bad month from for the month of January. We took 13 reports, and in that 13 reports, we had 14 crimes reported, and there was 4 theft reports taken. And for the month of January in Highland Park, let me get this sorted out here. We had 2 arrests from the area. So all in all, not a bad month on our crime stats reporting. One of the things that we are just reminding everybody about is with the weather that we're having and everything being unpredictable, again, please make sure you're leaving enough time to get somewhere. Watch for these roads as weather pops up. Make sure your vehicles are taken care of, inspected, in the right place, in the right condition, what they need. If you don't have remote starts on your vehicle, we're asking, please. I know it's tempting to go out and start the car up, leave the keys in, go back inside and make a cup of coffee or something like that. We're asking that you please don't do that, because that just makes it so much easier for someone to come through, break a window, get your car and go, and it's gone, before you know it. So just kind of just basically winter safety stuff at this point. I'll go ahead and open it up for if there's any questions. All right. Well, I hope everybody is staying nice and warm and inside on a frosty night like tonight. And if you need anything, please give me a call down at Zone 5.
Great. Thank you so much. We always appreciate having you here and for all you do in the neighborhood.
Appreciate it. Thanks. Take care.
All right. All right. Well, our speaker tonight is Jen Torpy from the zoo, but we do have a few announcements we're just going to try to knock out first. If you weren't able to join us last month, then you might not know that the HPCC is celebrating its 80th anniversary this year. Woohoo! We are the oldest continually operating community organization in the city, and we're very proud of it. So we decided to sort of spend the whole year just celebrating our neighborhood, celebrating the organization, all the things it does. It's evolved a lot over the years. It started a lot of, as parents, creating sort of sports leagues for kids, and has evolved into different things over time as the desires and needs of the community has changed. Right now, you all know we do a lot of communication, trying to make sure we can get information out to the neighborhood about issues that might be of interest to y'all. We advocate for the neighborhood with city and other organizations. And we also try to help build the social fabric of the community by providing opportunities for people to get together, whether it's through meetings like this or events like our barbecue or our children's activities or other things that we do that give people an opportunity to actually meet their neighbors face to face. So we're super excited about that. And we have some things happening this year that are new or returning, that are special because of this anniversary. And the one that's coming up the soonest is the wine tasting. I'm going to pass it off to Howard, our treasurer, who has been on the organizing committee, to tell you all a little bit about that.
Hi, so this year we're launching a new event. It's a fundraiser that we're calling Cheers to 80 Years, and it's going to be a wine tasting event. You might have seen it in the newsletter or on the listserv or on our website. We've been selling tickets for the event, and it is almost completely sold out. So if you were thinking about buying a ticket and interested in the event, you should go and do it right now, because it's going to sell out. The event will be on March 7th from 5:30 to 7:30, and it is a fundraiser to support all the things that we're doing, throughout the year, and especially support the parklet. What are we going to be doing at that event? Well, we'll be talking about the community council with, with neighbors and friends and some people from outside of the neighborhood who've bought tickets and her coming to support our organization. Um, I think that's it. We hope that it'll be a success. We're going to have delicious food. We're going to have 5 different wines to sample, courtesy of, at the selection of Jack Bryce, who is a board member and wine enthusiast and expert, and he'll be telling us a little bit about each wine. And that's about it. Did I leave anything out, Stephanie?
Who's catering?
Oh, the catering. I'm so sorry. The catering will be from a local catering company called Sprezzatura, which is headed by Jen Saffron. And Jen is based out of the Pittsburgh Theological Seminary, where she does all of her cooking. And she also lives at the seminary and runs her business out of that space. She also runs the Millvale Market over in Millvale, and she has a number of different businesses related to catering. She has the catering business. She also does like weeknight meals, and we're really excited to have her on board for the event. She'll be there herself, and she'll have some flyers from her business, along with a couple of her servers helping with the throughout the evening.
And the venue is pretty special. It's at the top of the Highland House Tower, which you all know, at the corner of One Wild Way and Bunker Hill. And a lot of people I know have never been up there. Actually, I haven't been up there yet either, but I hear the view is fabulous. And so this is an opportunity to check it out. And it's a limited space. I mean, we really are constrained. And so we have to limit the number of tickets that we can sell. And as I think as of this morning, there were less than 10 left. So if you are interested, go to our website and snap them up because they will be sold out soon.
I will say one last thing, which is that, the home tour, we will have a model unit will be open on the home tour. So if you don't make it to Highland House Tower on the for the wine tasting event, there'll be another chance.
Oh my gosh, Howard, that's a perfect segue because the house tour was the next thing on my list. Do we have any of our house tour organizers here? The house tour.
Before we get into that, Stephanie, I will
Yeah.
say I have been in the penthouse apartment and it is fabulous.
Excellent. The house tour is coming up again. It's back by popular demand. It's being organized by Elisa, who you know from our board, and a bunch of other volunteers. And it's going to be Mother's Day weekend, Sunday, May 11th. And one of the places lined up is a unit at the Highland House. They've lined up some other properties. We're going to sort of do a reveal later about that. They are looking for volunteers. So if you're interested in helping out the day of or helping with organizing, you can send us an email and we will connect you to Elisa and the house tour team. We also, Howard mentioned that part of the reason for this fundraiser is to support the parklet. As many of you know, especially if you've been in Highland Park for a little while, in 2020, during the first summer of COVID, we were very worried about our neighborhood businesses. As you recall, everybody was stuck inside and not going anywhere, and we were very worried that our businesses wouldn't survive. And so one of the things that we did to sort of support our businesses in our community is we were able to lease the land across the street from Smiling Banana Leaf at the corner of Bryan Street and North Euclid, and clean it up and make it into a nice little parklet. And we've been leasing it ever since. There's a nice garden there now, picnic tables. We've had a lot of volunteers. I see Andrea Mudd, and some of you might know MJ from Gallery Ama, and other folks have been very involved in getting that place just cleaned up and thriving and developing the garden over the years. And finally, we now this year are going to be able to purchase it. It's been a goal of ours for some time. This way we know we'll be able to protect it for upcoming generations and maintain it as just a nice real community gathering space in the business district. So that is something definitely worth celebrating. And when it becomes official, we'll have to do like a ribbon cutting ceremony or something down there. We'll also be doing community survey, finding out what people are interested in having us do, and things on Bryan Street and the parklet. But we're going to unveil that a little bit later this spring. So that's something to look forward to. We also are, as part of our regular cycle, we have board openings coming up in June. And I see a lot of familiar faces like Lucy and Jill and some other folks. I'm looking at you. We need board members, people that are excited and want to be a part of the community. It's a great opportunity to meet people. And it's only the best people that become HPCC board members, because they're people that just like want to give back to their community. So if you're interested, reach out and we can have a chat. We're also looking for some volunteers with specific talents. Particularly looking at my list here. You might have seen that our newsletter has been irregular lately. The person who's doing our newsletter is just, life got busy and complicated. And so we'd love to find someone who would be able to, help us pull together this monthly newsletter. Nancy can help, with that transition. She has been fabulous. So that's something, if you have like writing skills or web skills, that would be a great sort of one thing you could do. Just take so many hours a month. We also would love someone, you have accounting skills. The treasurer task is a sort of a big job that Howard does quite well on his own, but it's a labor of love and laborious. So to have a deputy treasurer that can help out Howard would be great. So again, if you have accounting skills or that type of thing, we would love to sort of get you in for a few hours a month. And also, you might know, if you watch the listserv, there's a Zone 5 like citizens public safety group that meets once a month. It's representatives from all the neighborhoods in Zone 5. And currently we don't have anyone who goes to those meetings. So if public safety is something you're interested in, if you're interested in meeting folks from our surrounding communities, they're a super nice group. And it's a great opportunity. And again, that's like one night a month, sorry. So that's another sort of specific volunteer that we're looking for. So if any of those things resonate with you, you can just email us and we can talk and try to work something out. All right, some other quick announcements. Park Bruges, we said goodbye to Park Bruges. We're saying hello to a new restaurant. It's owned by the people who own Penn Ave Fish Market down the Strip District. And they say that they plan on having their soft opening in March. So something to look forward to next month. Let's see. And there's some park updates. Tina, can you briefly give some park updates, or I can give the updates?
I have it for the park. I'm reporting also on behalf of Beth Hutton. So what we wanted to report on is number one, the outcome of the deer calling program at the park. 17 deer were killed at in the archery program. And it was of the 5 parks where there is the archery program, Highland Park had the lowest number, 17. The highest number was 69 for Frick, 47 for Emerald View, 47 for Shenley, and 19 for Riverview. Beth has done a great job keeping in touch with our park ranger, Bram Pert, to try to understand.
Paragraph because it's the vital for Sunday.
Excuse the other meeting going on in the same room. He's talked with Bram Pert about the meaning of the numbers, and our numbers were low, 17. Did the rangers, did they consider that low? It really was what they expected. The number of deer in Highland Park is nowhere near the number of deer in Frick Park or Emerald View. So they said these numbers looked exactly like what they expected. So across the city, there were 199 deer killed, and that they provided from those deer almost 15,000 meals for food banks. They're going to take down the archery signs if they're not down already. The no hunting signs will remain up. Just a little bit more about the deer and the size of our park, that when you take the amenities out of the equation for our park, there's only 139 acres that were available for the archery and for archery zones that are away from things. So it's in that sense, it's one of the smaller parks. most archers do choose other parks because there's more activity with deer in those parks. And anyway, we're going to continue this conversation with Bram Pert, our forest ranger, to make sure we understand. The city is planning to continue on with the program. And you may have read in the news that there's 2 parks, I believe. I know Frick's one of them, but I don't know the second one. They're going to actually add sharpshooters to those programs in those parks that have more deer in the coming year. So that's all for deer, if you have any questions. But just one other thing I want to throw in, this has to do with bald eagles, that the rangers did spot 2 bald eagles near Reservoir 2. And Stephanie, remind me, which one is 2? Is it the covered one or the uncovered one?
I'm not even sure, to tell you the truth.
Okay, well,
I always refer to them as the covered one, the uncovered one.
right, it's Reservoir 2. They presume that they were mating, and which this is the season for. And so he just said, keep your eyes open for them, that they have been spotted. So any questions? Okay, thank you.
Great. Thank you, Tina. There's so much stuff going on in the parks, and Beth and Tina are doing a great job trying to keep up with it all. And then there is another park issue. Again, if you come to these meetings regularly, you will know that PWSA has come many times to talk to us about all the various water system improvements that are happening. And because of the reservoir, we're sort of the hub of many of these things. And most recently, we had the rising main installation, in the park parallel to Bunker Hill. And then they have replaced the pump station at the end of Nagley, the north end of Nagley. And, they started coming to us to talk to us about these projects in 2018. And they've come at least twice a year, every year since then, to give us updates. But then last month, we were notified that they had not told us about the need to install new power lines for that facility. The previous facility used the power from the lines that are already in place in Nagley Ave, but those lines do not have sufficient capacity for the new equipment. And they sort of just unveiled this proposal that they were going to connect to the high voltage lines that run on North Euclid by installing new 40-foot towers on Bunker Hill, running them down Bunker Hill to One Wild Way, going from One Wild Way to Mellon, sort of zigzagging across Mellon Court and back to the new pump station. And they just sort of unveiled it, not really expecting to do a public engagement process. And Deb Gross was the one who found out about it sort of unexpectedly at a meeting. And so she has been a great advocate, and she said that we had to have a meeting, and we met representatives from HPCC and Deb's office and Deb and Public Works and Duquesne Light. And the long and the short of it is they're very frustrated with us because we're making them slow down, or at least trying to make them slow down. We want them to bury the lines. They don't want to bury the lines because it increased the cost. The fact that they had Mellon extension torn up for a year and could have buried the lines then, well, it's just a point of frustration. But in any case, we asked them to present various alternatives and costs so we could have a public meeting about it. And we're waiting to hear back from them. We're not sure what's going to happen. They're saying that it's very urgent. And I'm not sure. They've been working on this project publicly since 2018. And I'm sure for a couple of years before that. And according to the last presentation they gave on it, they're have another year until they're supposed to be finishing. So we're definitely keeping tabs on that, and we'll let you know what's going on with that. That's a bit of frustrating news. A bit of good news is a lot of you reached out to us in the past month or two about street trees. Duquesne Light had a contractor that came out and tagged many, many, many trees across the neighborhood to be cut down. And people were very upset and nervous about that. And so we being Deb Gross and members of the HPCC board, met with the city forester, and they assured us that that was done in error. that Duquesne Light had an overzealous subcontractor, which happens from time to time, who doesn't actually follow the rules and overtags the trees. And then everybody gets mad because the public gets mad and they call the forestry department, they call Duquesne Light, and it's a big, big to do. So forestry, explained to us that even though Duquesne Light tags the trees, they have to get permission from forestry to cut them down. And forestry has very high standards. They don't want to cut down street trees if it can be avoided. So they really will only allow street trees to be cut if there's a real health or safety issue. And I sent out to the listserv tonight a message that came from Duquesne Light, essentially reiterating that they apologized to the community for the concern they caused. They said they are not going to come and clear cut all of our street trees. And they also wanted to let people know that if there's a tree that's on your property, so like not a street tree that's in the right of way, but a street tree that's in your yard that maybe overhangs like lines or connects with lines. And if they tag it or put a flyer on your door that says they want to take it down, you have the right to decline. If it's on your property, you can always say no. If you do say yes, because some people do want trees taken down, they just want to make sure you're aware that they only will remove what they can put in their chipper. So if they're giant pieces, big, the trunk or whatever, they just leave that in your yard, and you need to dispose of that yourself. So just so you're aware of that as well. But yeah, if you have tags, I don't know. I think they sprayed them, but there's physical tags, you can take them off. So, and the process or oversight for the trees that are on public property is the Department of Forestry. They're the ones that do all the permits for cutting trees, or they do the trees themselves. They also wanted us to let people know that they're inventorying trees in Highland Park this year. So they are going to be out counting trees. There was some sort of, I want to say an oak wilt. Yeah. So there are some trees that have to come down because of that. So they are going to be cutting some trees down, but there's a lot of concern about DEP wanting all the trees around the reservoirs to come down, and that is not going to happen anytime soon. I've talked to people in the mayor's office, and they're talking to DEP, and for the time being, at least, that's not going to happen anytime soon. They're talking about not starting until like 2028. So there's a long time to have a public process and discussion about whether that actually even makes sense. So the urgency on that one for now, at least, again, anytime people, you can see my little monster here. Anytime people change, in an administration or in offices, you never know like who gets the message about the agreements that have made. But for the time being, at least, like that's not like on a slow trajectory right now. So that's it.
Stephanie,
The Trump
Monica
issue.
had her hand up.
Yeah, I do. You blew by it, but I want to go back to the rising main replacement for a second, just as a help to the community. I noticed that, right where my water comes in, I have a powder room right above it, and I noticed that the faucet started dripping, and then toilets started running a little bit. Because they changed the rising main, the water pressure in Highland Park has changed significantly. So my water pressure was significantly higher than it had been for the last 30 years I was in the house. And I started noticing, because the sink closest to the water line coming in started dripping, and it was because of the pressure behind it. So I actually had to have water pressure valve put on my incoming main to manage it. And we took it down to 65 pounds, which is much more normal. It was up to 80, which is like, it's going to start breaking things. So just to warn everybody, and I'm down the hill. I'm not up in that, section right, by the tower and everything. So I've heard a couple of other people talk about that they were having some dripping things and they had to put a pressure valve on. My next door neighbor had to put a pressure valve on. So just to let you guys know, if you're seeing faucets dripping and stuff and you're thinking, oh, I've got to tighten something, you should probably have your plumber come in and check it. Because literally I ended up having to replace 3 faucets that were close to it because they had all like been compromised by the pressure that was coming into the house. So I actually emailed, not to mention names, but the head of PWSA, and said, I think that it would be valuable for you to let people know that all these improvements are making the pressure better, but that they should be vigilant. And I did not get an answer back, needless to say, but it's one of those double-edged swords, pros and cons, but just pay attention to it. If you happen to have a plumber in your house, just for any other reason, replacing a toilet, anything, ask them to check the pressure. because I mean, ours like just over the course of like 3 months destroyed a number of things in the house. So
Yeah.
thought I'd share.
I just
Right.
to
Well,
add,
thank you so much, Monica. I hadn't heard that, but that's really interesting. And yeah, we're not opposed to the projects. I mean, we know that
Yeah.
our water system is 100
It's a
plus
good
years
thing.
old, so it has to
There are
happen. But
consequences.
right,
I-
it's just there are consequences, and it's also there's consequences for installing new infrastructure, particularly right by the entrance of the park. I mean, this is like a big regional park. Like we need to think about like what we're installing right there, and if there are better ways to do it. So
can I
um,
share something on the water pressure? I actually had the opposite issue. I'm on 912 North Highland, and I have had 0 pressure for 5 weeks, which they told me was because of water main breaks. And I finally had someone come this week, and it was low. But just as a note, and I don't know if anybody else had this issue on Highland Avenue, but when they were doing the work, there was a lot of mud and dirt that was going through the lines. And if you have it cleaned out and have a plumber address it and you documented it's because of that, they can apply for it to be reimbursed by the water company. So I don't know. I suspect that's not the same for the high pressure, but I know that I was told by someone I could apply to get reimbursed. Just as
Here,
a note.
I'm in the 900 block of North Highland, so we're like neighbors. Hi.
Oh, hi. I wish I had your high pressure.
Yo.
grass is always greener.
Yeah, I was gonna say, careful what you wish for.
We have no pressure or low pressure, and we're
And you're on,
846.
you're in the 800, aren't you?
Yeah, we've had, it's such low pressure.
Clearly, they're coming from 2 different directions.
Yes, yes. Next meeting, Water Authority.
Good to see
Well,
you.
we're hoping to have them come in to talk about this rising the pump station issue. So we can add that to the list if we can get them to come in. Susie asked about the shrub and habitat removal around the uncovered reservoir. I don't know anything about it, Tina. I don't know if you've heard. I know that invasive species are an issue that they're always trying to fight.
I have not heard anything about that.
Is she asking about the trees? The tree issue? Because
Yeah,
that's
I'm
also-
asking about all the habitat that was removed around the bottom of the reservoir between the trees. And then I thought you guys said it was because that somebody deemed that reservoir a dam.
Yeah,
it's
it
two
could be
separate
because, yeah, so the State Department of Environmental Protection has decided that it's a dam and that they get to regulate it. And they were out looking at it at some point. So they might have removed some of that shrub to look
Right.
at it. But
But
they
also
haven't, they
the
weren't,
roots.
I don't know if they're supposed to be doing that because they told PWSA, that they being Department of Environmental Protection, that they have to remove all the trees from the 2 reservoirs from the sides. And so the city is pushing back on that. And so that was sort of what I was referring to earlier about it's sort of that's gonna be a long process. And there's still like challenge as to whether the regulations they're trying to apply actually make sense to this situation. Like the regulations that they have in place for dams are dams on moving water. And so, regulating the reservoir for safety, like that's good. We don't oppose that, but the regulations need to make sense for the structure. And so it could be that they need to think about some different regulations for this particular type of structure. Sabrina, did you jump in?
Yeah, I believe the shrubs that were removed last fall was an invasive clean out. So I don't think that's related to this stuff about the trees possibly being cut down because of the reassessment of the reservoir as a dam. And so that's my understanding.
All right. And I think that the only other thing, if you haven't heard, there's a new project on the Highland Park Bridge. Again, if you've lived here for a while, you know that the far side of the bridge, they redid those on-ramps and off-ramps a few years back. Now they're doing our side of the bridge. So they're going to redo the interchange, coming onto Route 8 and onto blanking on the name, but essentially the interchange is on our side, and then do some replacing of the plates and do some drainage work. And I read an article, but it was unclear that money might be being held up right now because the money is coming from the feds going to the state. And of course, the the feds have sort of put a hold on a lot of the grants, for at least for the time being. So that project might be delayed a little bit. It's not really clear, but there'll be more work on Highland Park Bridge at some point down the road. So we'll keep you apprised of that. So that is all the many things, again, examples of just some of the things that HPCC works on every day for you. Are there any questions on any of these or other issues before we hand it off to our visiting keynote speaker?
Stephanie, it's Lucy Bunchleon. I can do the zone, I go to the Zone 5 meetings every month.
Oh, great.
So I can, report if there's anything to report for Highland Park.
Oh, that'd be great. Thanks, Lucy. All right. Well, with that, then I am going to hand things off to Jen Torpy, who is coming to us today from the zoo.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I'm Jen Torpy. I'm the Vice President of Education and Community Engagement at the zoo. I'm going to share my screen. I'm here to talk to you about the new master plan that the zoo unveiled. It's a 20-year master plan that we shared publicly last October. But I wanted to give you an overview of kind of all of the changes that we're envisioning over the next 20 years and also address any of your questions or concerns. I do want to note one of the things that is not reflected in here is conversations around Heth's Run. And it is not because it is not important, but it's because we understand that the community needs to be involved in this. And we've had many productive conversations with HPCC over this last year, and we know that there needs to be many, many more coming forward. So the lack of representation of what Heth's Run could look like is just an acknowledgement that y'all need to be involved. So I appreciate all the work that this group has done on that. And I do welcome any questions about that during this conversation. I'm not able to see any questions that pop into the chat while I'm presenting. So if someone is able to let me know if there's a question as we go, I'm happy to answer it as we go through. So there is not a single part of the zoo's campus that is going to be left unaffected by our master plan over the next 20 years. We're really completely re-envisioning the way our habitats look, and that's for a few different reasons. Our zoo has a lot of history to it. Many of the habitats have been around for a while. The last major renovation to a habitat was completed over a decade ago. And we're always continuing to improve to make sure that we're meeting new standards of animal wellness. So we really want to make sure that our habitats are state of the art, not only for the animals who call them home, but also for the visiting public to maximize the opportunities for people to get close and meet the animals, see them in naturalistic habitats, and also participate in the conservation work that the zoo is doing. So I'm going to provide an overview on all of these different areas, but I'm going to focus on a little bit more detail of what you can expect in the first phase of the master plan. So there are 3 phases. The first phase is looking at the next 5 to 7 years. So I'm happy to, again, pause, dive into any questions that y'all have as we go through. So the first phase of the master plan within the next 5 to 7 years, we are going to be redoing our ticketing and entry. And if you've been at these meetings when the zoo has presented previously, you may have heard about this project. This is going to be the first project that we undergo. The front entrance is going to be completely updated. A lot of our habitat, or a lot of the areas and buildings there are just outdated. They're not meeting the needs that the zoo has. They're not accessible to the public. So we're making sure that we're adding new stroller and wheelchair rentals so that those are right at the front rather than up top of the elevator and escalator, just keeping it more accessible for folks. It's going to have new restrooms, so you don't have to wait until you get into the zoo to use the bathroom. That'll be a very big benefit. But this is the project that is going to be happening, we anticipate, within the next 3 months of this starting. So this is the current gates. The renovation goal, again, updating the aging infrastructure, increasing the sustainability and the accessibility, and increasing for our visitor flow. As part of this, the zoo fit path is also going to be renovated, although the start of that is probably going to be a few months behind the front entry gate. It's going to be a little bit of a longer pathway, but it will be fully paved, and the slope is going to be much more gentle and ADA accessible. So we're really looking forward to that. So from the air, this is the current setup. And you can see that the zoo fit path over here, I'm not sure, I'm hoping you can see my pointer, but it's on a green arrow. That is going to extend and continue around the elevator and escalator area. And then the new zoo entry is going to have more congregating space, more ticketing windows, those restrooms, like I mentioned, and permeable ground cover to make sure that we're capturing some of the water and having some better stormwater management. So these are some renditions of what it was going to look like. The stairs are going away, and that is going to become an ADA accessible pathway that everyone will go in. There will also be a group entrance. Now, the impact of this over the next few months, we anticipate construction happening hopefully in the next 2 to 3 months, depending on our final permits. We have many of our permits that have been approved. We're just waiting on some final recommendations from the city before we break ground. But if you come in through the main entrance, our entryway is going to be moved to up in the village. If you come through the education center, that access is not going to change, but we'll have plenty of signs directing you where to go. One of the next big projects that we're actively in the planning phases for is a new giraffe barn. Now, this is the indoor area where our giraffes stay when it's the winter time to make sure that they have a consistent temperature. And this is in anticipation of an expanded African savanna habitat that is seen in later phases. So this is going to provide larger indoor space for giraffes. It's going to also offer winter viewing opportunities for the public to see into the giraffe habitats. And it also allows the giraffes an easier access to their exterior habitat. Right now, they do have to walk a pretty long runway that is especially challenging on icy days because of the giraffes' long legs. Icy slips are pretty dangerous for them. So we're just shortening that pathway so that they can kind of step effectively right out into their habitat long term. Another area that we're going to see some expansions in this first phase is going to be updating the islands. We are going to be doing a completely renovated orangutan habitat. We recognize that the orangutan habitat that's in our tropical forest building right now is not meeting what we want an orangutan habitat to be. And in anticipation of this, we had 2 orangutans who were housed in that habitat, Ember and her son Jiwa. Ember, we worked with the Indianapolis Zoo and the other Association of Zoos and Aquariums species survival plans to move Ember to Indianapolis Zoo. So she is in a different habitat that has some larger accommodations for her. And we're also working with the species survival plan to find an alternate zoo for Jiwa. So they are going to hopefully come back once we open this habitat, but we want to make sure that you're aware if you come to visit the orangutans, Ember is already in Indianapolis and Jiwa will be leaving in the next few months. So we will miss them, but when they come back, they will do so to a significantly expanded indoor-outdoor orangutan habitat that meets the standards that we want to have for our animals. There will also be additional winter viewing indoors. And as part of this project, we're also going to be updating and expanding the clouded leopard habitat. We're also going to be focusing on expanding our education programs, and for that, we need a larger building. So we're going to be building an expansion onto our education center. This is going to include additional bathrooms, additional classrooms and office space, additional behind-the-scenes habitat for our ambassador animals who help us teach our education programs. And it's also going to include a nature play area. And that's going to be really critical for this space because we're building the classrooms with the intention of opening a nature preschool. We really want to make sure that we're starting environmental education really early. And a lot of studies have shown that outdoor play makes kids happier, healthier, and smarter in later life. So we really want to make sure that we're providing those opportunities for kiddos.
Hey, Jen,
Yes.
coming from somebody who hasn't been to the zoo for a while, I apologize, but I don't have any children.
Oh, that's okay.
Do you have anything that kind of overlays like the current situation and then the new expanded situation so we can like kind of understand what the larger platform looks like for some of these animals?
Sure. I can try to find that. I don't think I have it in
We
this
can do that at the
presentation.
end if we need to.
Yeah,
but
so
I was just
the
curious. I thought it might be helpful because we're looking at big, beautiful things and all that looks like space, but I don't know what it
Yeah.
was before, so I don't have anything to like build off of.
Yeah, no problem. I can make a note of that and send over that map. We do have that overlay and I have an image of it at the start of this, but it's kind of hard to see that underlying area. So I can work with our creative team to see if we can get something and send it over. Yeah, great question. And finally, we're hoping to, as we expand the entry gate, and that is completely renovated, to also make sure that our entry village is going to be updated. Right now, guests have to wait until they pass underneath the bridge and get over to the lynx and the tigers to see their first animal. That's a long ways, especially when you have little kids that are really excited to see an animal. So we are planning to build out some habitat space into the village area and make sure that when you first come in, you're already having an animal up close experience. This is going to update the events plaza as well, so we can host a variety of different events and performing artists throughout the year. We are going to be renovating our restrooms, but we're not waiting until these projects to do restroom renovations. We've had some really fantastic and generous support from RAD to provide funding for us to update our bathrooms now. So if you come to visit this summer, after May, you'll see completely refreshed bathrooms across the park. So before I move into a high-level overview of the following phases, I wanted to open it up for questions for this first phase, because this is going to be what's coming up in the next few years.
Jennifer, how is all this being funded? I mean, like, if you're rebuilding the zoo from top to bottom, that's really ambitious.
It sure is. And we have a really fantastic development team that has been working with some consultants to look at a feasibility study of raising funding for this. We obviously get a lot of our funding from memberships as well as the gates. That amounts to about 35% of our total revenue comes from that. But we also really rely on foundation support, private donations as well, and then revenue from a variety of other programs, although education revenue is not significantly impact. We cover our costs. But I wish my programs were selling out that fast. But primarily looking at foundations, corporate support, and donor support for funding a lot of these larger projects.
Hey, Jen, David Hance here. Relative to the coloration on the map, is darker red new or kind of fully renovated spaces? What's the difference in the colors of the buildings we're looking at?
Yes, the darker purple is the updated spaces that will be touched by that renovation. Any other questions about this first phase? Okay. So for our second phase, there's fewer projects, but they have a larger impact on the zoo. So this is what we're looking at 7 to 12 to 15 years out. So currently, if you come up the path, you'll see the elephant barn, the elephant habitats out here, and then the giraffes are on this side. This is that new giraffe barn that I was referencing. We are then, it's going to be right next to where the tropical forest habitat building is right now, where our primates are housed. That building is going to come down. It is quite outdated, and we want to make sure that we're building areas that have more natural sunlight than that habitat currently provides. So instead, we're going to be building a small building called the African Forest. This is going to have indoor housing and viewing for our gorilla habitat. And then they're going to have expanded outdoor spaces. This is their current footprint right now. And then they're going to expand out into a larger yard. You might notice these buildings back here say horticulture. That's our behind the scenes spaces, our greenhouses and things that, staff parking, things like that. So that's not going to be viewable, but we'll have these expanded gorilla habitats. We're also going to move the pygmy hippo habitat from up at the top of the hill in Jungle Odyssey down here and give an expanded yard and a larger pool. And we're also hoping to get okapi, which are a really incredibly unique species that we're hoping to welcome to the zoo. And Jumbo Grill is going to stay in its current location. As part of the African Forest, there is going to be a large event space that hopefully can seat in about 400 people for an event. This is also going to be activated for overnights and education programs as well. So while Jumbo Grill is that's the restaurant that overlooks the giraffe habitat, that is going to stay where it is. It is going to expand. It's going to have a deck expanded on the outside to allow for more outdoor viewing that gets a more up-close view of the giraffes, as well as over the pond that we're going to be building in the new giraffe habitat. And then finally for phase 3, this is much further out towards the end. But we are going to be updating our African lowlands habitat. So currently our tiger habitat is down here. This is where our lions are and our leopard are. Those habitats are going to be expanded. Rhino is currently up over in this area. We are committed to having our current rhino live out his life in comfort and the luxury that he has now. But however, rhinos are not in part of our long-term plan. So after he passes, we will be opening up the space for additional species. And then we're also hoping to have some giant tortoises and some smaller African species in that area, effectively expanding our African savanna space further out. We also have expansions on the African savanna overlook, making sure that while our elephants have an expanded space and the giraffes also have more space, we're looking to introduce mixed savanna species. Currently, we have our Nyala and our ostrich. We'd like to introduce some additional ungulates and make sure that these habitats are all connected, giving all of the species there more space to roam. This overlook space is currently where we have the roof shade structures overlooking the elephant habitat. That's going to be expanded and enclosed, and that's also going to be an event and education space that overlooks the African savanna habitat. Incorporated into that is also going to be a giraffe feeding platform. We run a giraffe feeding experience right now. Lewis is a big fan of all of the food that he can possibly eat, but we know that that's a really exciting space that and an opportunity that we want to offer to more people. This will offer some new restrooms and updated mixed restroom and family restroom facilities. We're also going to expand our Australian walkabout species. Currently, we have our wallabies and kangaroos over in Kids Kingdom. We're going to move that habitat up to where the clouded leopard habitat is currently, as well as the warty pigs, and have that walkabout experience in a budgie aviary. If you're not familiar with budgies, they're these really cute little birds that often will eat pellets and things, seeds out of people's hands. So we're hoping to introduce that experience. We do have a variety of different native species in our Kids Kingdom area. This is depicting our current Kids Kingdom area. And this is the boardwalk that you can see. We want to update the boardwalk. Currently, we do have to close it in the winter because it gets a little slippery. We want to completely renovate it so it is available to be open year round. And we're really going to highlight a variety of different Pennsylvania species that are either endangered, critically endangered, or threatened. Speaking of the bald eagles, the eagles that are nesting over by the reservoir, you may often hear a lot of chatter in the morning because the zoo became home to 2 bald eagles that were deemed non-releasable, and they came from Alaska Rehab Center. And our eagles and the native eagles will constantly yell at each other in the morning, kind of challenging each other for the territory. So we are keeping an eye on that. But if you hear a lot of angry eagle calls, that's what's going on, and we're aware. Everyone seems to generally be staying on their side of the trees for now. I do want to mention, as part of this Kids Kingdom update to Pennsylvania Wilds in Peril, we do know that our playgrounds and the kids' play facilities are a huge part of why members, especially with young children, come to the zoo. So we want to make sure that we're updating those. So we are looking at ways that we can potentially update and introduce additional play areas without having to wait for this phase 3. But at least in phase 3, that's something that we're really hoping to be able to fund. And then we also want to build an ambassador animal complex. So currently our ambassador animals are housed in our education department. And as our education experiences and opportunities grow, so too will the animal ambassador group that we have grow to meet those encounters that we introduce. So our animal ambassador spaces, we want to take the cue from a variety of other zoos that are offering an indoor and outdoor habitat spaces for all their animal ambassadors. So those animal ambassadors, we have about 60 right now, and we're hoping to increase the collection to about 100. But that requires space that we don't currently have. So we're not doing that until we have this new habitat with indoor and outdoor access. We are also, you'll see it's in the place that the Discovery habitat is in right now, or the Discovery Pavilion. And then we're also going to be building an amphitheater. Right now we have the Safari Amphitheater and the Discovery Amphitheater. Safari is the one up by the leopards. Amphitheater is this amphitheater is the Discovery. It's the smaller one, those steps that are next to the Discovery Pavilion. We're going to expand this out into a 200-seat amphitheater space. And this, if you're trying to get an idea of where things are, that's where Otis the crocodile lives, and that little bridge that kind of goes over. So that will be replaced. So that's a very high level overview of what we're hoping to do. I want to make sure that I open it up for questions, and anyone who thinks of questions later, I did put our community contact email on here, and you can always reach out to me via that contact email for any follow-up questions.
Yeah.
Jennifer, someone posted, oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I have two questions. One is about the physical. What's happening, and I wasn't quite sure from the drawings. The old, probably dates back to the old WPA where the bears live, the big stone that are just empty spaces now. Is something planned for there? Our grandkids, our kids always said, "Why, what's going on?"
Nancy, your finger is over the microphone.
Sorry, I'm so sorry.
Say that again, please.
Could hear that. The old space that like dates back from early zoo of the big stones, where the bears were kept, that is just vacant now. It's just kind of grassy areas, overgrown. Yes. What's happening with that area?
Yeah, so that'll become part of I believe the Australian walkabout area. That space we don't plan to put any animal habitats in currently. They would require pretty extensive renovations to make sure that the animal habitats are up to snuff for what our modern standards are, as well as making sure that we have the behind the scenes spaces for our caretakers to provide for anything in there safely. So we don't have any plans for them right now. We are trying to activate them during our evening events. So our Jack-o'-lantern extravaganza and the wild illuminations, we do activate those with some lanterns and light displays, but we don't currently have any animal habitats planned until these larger expansions.
Thank you. And one more question. Mm-hmm. In terms of the educational opportunities, I think it's wonderful that you're going to do some sort of an early training. Our kids who are now have their own kids still have difficulty trying to register for camps at the zoo. Is there some way or in the plans to expand that to allow more kids to participate? The interest is definitely there. I'm sure, the capacity for you guys to deal with it is a struggle, but that's something I would love to see, since our kids wanted it and now our grandkids would like it. What are the plans?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked, because that's our most popular program by far. And for the last 2 years, we've tried to increase capacity. So about 2 years ago, we had spots for about 1,430 campers. We expanded over the last 2 years. We can now accept 1,800 campers. And that's just by creatively figuring out how do we move programs that are maybe a half day into different spaces without compromising the quality of the program and safety, of course. So we have increased pretty much to the capacity that we have with the education spaces available to us. That's why as we're moving forward, I was really pleased to see that we have these event spaces that will be able to be divided so that we can activate them for camps and other programs.
Good. Thank you so much. That's needed. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Jen, someone posted in the comments, they asked what measures, if any, are taken to minimize the noise and disruption of all this construction on the animals?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. So we do a lot to mitigate. We have an animal welfare committee and a behavioral management committee, and they both work together to conduct research studies to get a baseline understanding of animal behavior now when there's not construction going on. And then they'll do some testing with some loud machinery around and take some additional data on what that kind of baseline sound and disruption does to animal behavior. And if there are any significant changes, we address them either by finding ways to shift the animals to different parts of the zoo or moving them out to different zoos. So that's one of the reasons that Ember has moved to Indianapolis and Jiwa is going to be moving to a different habitat now, or orangutans, just because we know that, one, their habitat needs to be expanded for them to be happy, healthy, and thrive before they can kind of come back to us. But two, the construction would be really, really disruptive. So our team does a lot of that research to understand the impact. We also have additional measures that we can put in place, such as building sound barriers, soundproofing walls that might be near the construction. So that's all something that our animal care team works really closely with our facilities and construction team to manage.
Heard you say at the beginning that you weren't gonna, like, the Health Run plan was not included as part of your plan, but you also said that there had been some talks going on throughout the year. Do you mind just providing like and I haven't been part of those talks, and so do you mind providing just a quick like snapshot of kind of where we are in the
I'm happy to do that. And I'm also Stephanie and David and anyone else who's involved, please feel free to chime in too, because I can speak to the zoo's perception, but I want to make sure that, you know, I'm not speaking for the interactions totally. But Stephanie, David, Sabrina, a few other folks have come and chatted not only with Jeremy and my who's our CEO, Dr. Goodman, and myself. They've also presented to some select members of our board, and then presented to our executive committee the ideas and the work that has gone into Health Run to make sure that everyone now involved at the zoo, I'm not sure if everyone's familiar, but Dr. Goodman came to the zoo about 3.5 years ago. I've been at the zoo almost 2 years now, and many members of our board were not really involved in any of those community relationships or decisions before. So a lot of this was new to them, and it allowed us to kind of get a better understanding of the work that this group and other community partners and city partners have put into the Health Run plan. So I think those were really productive. We're also, we've had conversations with the city on kind of what, to get more background on it. And the city has reached out to Stephanie and they've reached out to us. And I think our next step is going to be some conversations with members of HPCC, as well as, you know, the Parks Commission, city planning, and kind of get us all in a room to kind of figure out what those next steps are. So I don't have a timeline for that. Dr. Goodman has been our primary contact with the city for those conversations. But that is our next step, kind of getting all in a room and figuring out what is the path forward for this project.
We actually have Goodman on camera saying that he is willing to have discussions, but when we asked him to lock down a date, he declined. So it's important that we get back to the table and work through.
Yes, so we were asked to present to the Zoo Executive Committee at the end of the summer during a monsoon. I don't remember that, Jen.
I did. It was the worst rain I've ever seen.
Yeah, it was like this huge like water spout over
and it floated out of the building.
Yeah, and so we put together a presentation that I then gave at a community meeting back in October. Essentially just looking at the zoo in the context of all the other redevelopment that's happening along the waterfront on the Allegheny. And it's really interesting because if you really look, essentially like public access and renewal is happening up and down the Allegheny, everywhere except for like at the zoo. So we were trying to make the case that this is a real, just not only just the trend, but it's also this real opportunity to connect the East End to all this network of trails and bike paths and other things that are some in place now and some being developed in the future. So it was a good meeting. It's an interesting perspective to think about. And, you know, it's not just doing this for no reason or whatever. I mean, there's a real economic development reason as well as an ecological reason and long-term investment in the community. So we are trying to set up a meeting with Dr. Goodman. We have a sort of a Health Run working group here in the neighborhood, and we'd like and other people as well. It's not just Highland Parkers on that group. And so we are hoping to continue that dialogue. It has sometimes been an uphill battle, but the city supports doing essentially reclaiming that space as green space. And so hopefully there's a path forward. And I don't know, Jen, what the next step is. Like I don't know, again, and I don't know if you're the right person to have this conversation with, but we want to set something up. So like whoever the right person is, like, please let us know so we can do that.
Yeah, so I meet with Dr. Goodman weekly, and we're constantly I'm trying to also get information on kind of where we are. He has conversations with the city that I'm not really involved in the conversations. So he has I know some meetings coming up that he is going to take, and this is going to be part of some of that background information that they touch on in preparation for larger meetings, just so that we make sure, again, we understand fully the community relationships who have been involved. So when we can have these next conversations, we don't have to have them again and again and again. We can bring everyone into the room. And I know y'all have been key members of that. So I will continue to communicate with you when I have updates and when we're able to move that forward. It is not from a lack of desire to find common ground on this, because I think there is a lot of common ground. We know that we need areas for parking, but it also is a terrible parking lot, right? There's a lot of things we can do to green it, make it a connector between Highland Park and the river that can meet both the zoo and the community needs. So we recognize that. And I know that it has been really frustrating, especially because this has been going on for so long, and the zoo has been for a very long time not a neighborly partner in this project. So I appreciate y'all's patience with us as we kind of get our ducks in a row with this new administration. But I am trying to be an open book, and I'm happy to, have continued conversations and share information that I have.
Well, thank you for acknowledging that, because yeah, it has been an uphill battle and a source of frustration for a lot of people for a lot of years. And somewhat related to this, and then going back to your presentation as well, in the past, when the zoo has done renovations, sometimes they've used Hess Run as the dumping area for debris. And so this might be a really technical question. I don't know if you can answer it, but like, what are the plans for debris removal when they do all this work?
That's a good question that I don't have an answer to. I can connect with our facilities team. They have probably a better idea of what's been done in the past. And I'm not sure if that was a relationship that they had gotten. I'm sure they had gotten permission from the city to do that. But with these additional conversations, I can try to find out what that mitigation plan is. Let me make a quick note of that. I'm not ignoring you. I'm going to write it in my phone to follow up.
Thank you.
Jan, I have a question. Years ago, a number of years ago, we looked at designs for a new zoo sign out front when they redid the intersection. And they came to us with a plan, and we actually said, we think it's too small. You need to be bigger. Like, we made it exponentially bigger. And I know David Hance and I were both in the meeting. Nothing ever happened to it. It's where the Christmas tree has been for the holidays, that big Christmas tree. Is there a plan to put a new sign in? I mean, there was a whole design. There were like walking animals out of metal and all kinds of stuff. And literally it was like 10 foot high. And we're like, no, be 20 foot high. I mean, we were like, it should be fabulous. You just can't have digital printouts on it, like ticker tapes and stuff. And nothing ever happened.
Do you know when this was? Like,
David, what was that? Like 5, 6, 8 years ago? What was that?
Oh, it was probably more than that. When let's see, when the bridge was going in, there used to be an electronic sign down at that intersection. So this goes back probably 2014, something like that. So that sign, which was never permitted, so that came out, and then there was a plan to come back with something new. And I think it's in the context of kind of, what you've just presented, Jan, is great about all the things kind of within your fence, right? Within the zoo boundaries that visitors visit after they, enter through the entry plaza. But the key point, and I think what you're acknowledging very positively tonight, is that, what happens outside the zoo enclosures, if you will, is really all happening, and that most notably includes Heth's Run, the 60 acres of Heth's Run. But just everything that happens outside that fence is really public parkland. It's part of one of Pittsburgh's regional parks, Highland Park, and really needs to be approached as a partnership between city, zoo, and I think probably state and federal partners. And many of the nonprofits will be interested in this as it goes forward. But, building that relationship so that it's functional between the city and the zoo, which has not been the historical practice over so many years, is really the key first step. So getting that confidence and trust between all the partners is what's needed, and you're speaking positively about that. Those steps may be starting to happen, and we look forward to that, joining those meetings and starting to work together finally.
Yeah, Jen, David and I have been working on Hess Run. David for much longer than I have, but we've been working on it for a very long decades, for a very long time. And honestly, I mean, I'll be the bad guy. The only reason it hasn't gone forward is because the zoo has planted their feet and not moved and not budged. And it's been a real challenge. And this is potentially, if there were public meetings, there were design plans, it's like a phenomenal park expansion and just an amazing amenity that the Parks Conservancy came up with. And I mean, honestly, it would be tremendous. And with walking paths down the trails and bike trails on the ground and all kinds of wonderfulness, because it's a huge space that could, has so much opportunity. It has the potential to be the largest park program that we will see in our lifetime, and that will benefit so many people, and it will connect the parks to the water and to the rivers and connect the rivers to the city. And it was just incredible. And, we're so proud of it and so happy, and like to see it happen in our lifetime would be wonderful. But in all honesty, it has been the zoo who has single-handedly, we had 25 people in a meeting with senators and everything at the zoo when Barbara was in charge. And it has gone nowhere because of parking. And it's we really hope.
Well, and hopefully, yeah. So hopefully, the conversation is changing, and hopefully the zoo realizes like you can invest in this beautiful 20-year plan, but like your front door looks terrible. I mean, everybody agrees, right? It's like this asphalt.
We agree too.
And so, right. So like, it doesn't make sense to do all that work behind the fence. If like what people see, like the face that you present, the zoo presents the world, is hideous. So hopefully there's a growing recognition that this is actually an opportunity for the zoo as well, because you want it to be this stellar showcase. You want people who drive by to look and be like, oh my gosh, it's like this beautiful natural space that calls to me, as opposed to like, whatever. Like I never took my kids there because I was just like so turned off by having to walk a mile across the asphalt just to get in the front door. So I think there is a recognition that its times have changed, and we need to move on and do some new thought there.
Amen.
There's a couple other questions. Oh my gosh. So let's just do the questions that are in the comments and then wrap things up. Given the expansion work related to the education complex in phase 1, are there any plans to keep or expand a members entrance in that complex to reduce vehicle traffic to the zoo from Highland Park? This has always been a thing that we know, like people can enter through the education center, but it's kind of like this hidden secret. And like, unless someone like tells you, like no one would ever know. So is that still going to be an option? And is it going to be like a more like,
yeah, as far as I'm aware, there still will be member entrance in there. I've been in meetings where that has been called out as yes, that will continue. There will not be expanded parking in that area. We're not able to do any expansions there because of the reservoir, and we're very aware of that. So that entry area is likely not going to be updated as part of the expansion, but entry will still be able to happen in there.
And then someone said, I'm happy to hear there's concern for noise through construction, but can you speak to the current events that the zoo offers that are noisy enough for me to hear from my backyard? That can't be good for the animals.
So we have a decibel level that we make sure that all of our bands and all of our people coming in meet. Everything has to remain below 80 decibels. And we actually have sound meters that our animal care team uses and our events team uses to reinforce that with our vendors, based on research that comes out of the Association of Zoos and Aquariums and animal welfare professionals. That's the decibel level at which, for species that live on land, that over that you start to see stress with the animals, like significantly higher. If you get like over 90 and 100, that can be stressful. So we have our decibel level at 80. We do have it lower in the aquarium space just because that water magnifies sound. So it's something around 70. And we've actually been working with some researchers to take some sound measurements during those events that are in the aquarium to understand the actual acoustic impact in different habitats, whether that habitat is right next to a band or whether it's 2 floors away behind the scenes. So we have sound readings that we take and continuously monitor that to make sure that we're addressing that and not causing undue stress.
All right.
I love
All
this.
right. And that was the last question. We're at almost 8:15. Are there any final questions before we wrap up?
Well, I just want to thank you all again for having me. I recognize again that the zoo's relationship with Highland Park has been strained in the past, so I really appreciate any opportunity that you provide with me to kind of share what we're doing. And I hope to continue to work with you all and to make sure that we can create a zoo that we're all proud of, because I think we can definitely get there.
Thanks. You know, when when the wine tasting committee announced that they were going to have the event in that space, I was excited because I was hoping you'd be able to see the zoo, because I really thought it would be just a nice perspective for people who've been involved in Hess Run, both like the zoo and other stakeholders, to be able to really see it in the context of the park. But as it turns out, the way that the structure is oriented, there's an apartment that faces the zoo in the community space where the event's going to be sort of faces town. So it'll still be a fantastic view, but we don't get it to see the zoo from up there. But
Hey,
thank you so
but
much for
maybe
joining us, Jen.
2026, we can do the wine tasting event at the zoo,
There you go.
You're welcome to.
and then people will be able to see it up close.
Yes, we do have event spaces now. We don't need to wait for the 400 and 200 event space. If y'all are interested in holding any events at the zoo, please let me know. I'm happy to help facilitate that.
All right, great. Well, again, thank you so much. And that's right. Scoop up your wine tickets while you can. They're going fast. Thanks everyone for coming. Take care.